Now we would like to start the first session. We'd like to invite Mr. Salih Al-Asusi and Mr. Bekstrom, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, please allow me to welcome all of you to the 4th Global Informatics Forum. We are celebrating with you today that our forum becoming globalized, driven by the conviction of necessity for communication between Arab and international researchers and specialists within the domains of informatics. The Global Informatics Forum is aimed at enabling the environment for sustainable informatics development, increasing the community readiness for digital activities and setting its priority, consolidating bridges of intellectual communication and exchange among specialists and people who have interest in information society, disseminating knowledge-based thinking and future trends in informatics in various fields. Our guest and main speaker, Mr. Bekstrom, President and CEO of Internet Cooperation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, who will speak about the ICANN participatory model. Rod is President and CEO of ICANN, as organization charged with keeping internet secure, stable, and interoperable. ICANN employs a unique open multi-shareholder model to promote policy development for internet unique identifiers. Prior to joining ICANN, Rod served as director of the United States National Cyber Security Center, responsible for coordinating internet security policy across 6 cyber security centers in civilian, military, and intelligence communities. Rod is a permanent writer and speaker on issues of technology, cyber security, and leadership and organizational strategy. He co-authored 4 books, including The Starfish and the Spider, The Unstoppable Power of Leaderless Organizations, which is published more than 20 languages, Arabic among them. Rod's entrepreneurial career has started when he established his first company at age of 24, and later took it public to NASDAQ exchange. He is committed environmentalist and is active in prominent microfinancing programs in the developing world. He earned his MBA and undergraduate from Stanford University. Please join me in welcoming Rod for his speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saleh. And let's see if I can operate the slideshow here. There should be some slides somewhere. Perhaps, should I go over there?
If you want to.
It's probably easier, I'll go over there. Put these up, thank you. Excellent, thank you very much for this opportunity to address you. Thank you again for the wonderfully generous award for the Badge of Honor. And we are just so pleased and delighted to be here in your lovely country. And we appreciate your time. I thought I would talk today a little bit about ICANN and the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance and what that means and how it works. So I think the first question is, what's it all about? And what it's all about is connecting humans. The internet as a platform now allows us to connect to any human in the world that has internet access, has a cell phone, or has an email address, or has a Twitter account, or has a Facebook account. It's all about connecting humans. And ICANN has a role in making sure that that's possible. Now, if as humans we're able to connect through the internet, whether that's from Kuwait to China, or Kuwait to Ohio, or Kuwait to Los Angeles, or to Buenos Aires, how is that connection made? And why is it that we refer to this thing as the internet, as opposed to many internets, or the internets, or the networks? So why do we call it the internet? We call it the internet because it looks like one place. Now, for it to look like one place, what are the necessary conditions? The necessary conditions are that it be connected all over the planet, and the necessary conditions are that every name is unique, and every network address is unique, globally, anywhere in the system. And that uniqueness doesn't happen by accident. That uniqueness happens through the greatest global cooperation of human beings in our human history. It happens through the global internet community agreeing to a set of standards and practices so that we can make sure that every domain name, every email address, every network address is unique. And that is what the internet uses to communicate from one point to another point in the world. The other thing that holds the internet together are a set of standards. And among those standards are what we call the protocol and parameter registries. And I don't want to get too technical here, but that's things like assigning which port on your PC is used for email and which port, like port 80, is used for surfing the internet. There's thousands of such standards. And ICANN is the global coordinator for all of these unique identifiers through the global community. So let's look at that for a moment. I don't know if we have the slide or not. If we could bring the slide up, please. Thank you. So on the left you see names. Those are domain names. There's over 220 million domain names in the global internet today, including those under .kw, those under .com, .net, etc. On the right are internet addresses. And if any of you, some of you are technical, how many people have a technical background or work on computers in a technical capacity? All right, I see you're a little shy there. We've got some technical experts in the audience. So an internet address looks something like 198.160.020, et cetera. It's a long string of numbers in what we call Internet Protocol 4, Internet Protocol 6. We've allocated billions of those. We've actually allocated approximately 4 billion of the IPv4 addresses are in use by humans around the world because we're using them on our phones, we're using them on our PCs, we're using them on our tablets, our iPads, and we'll soon be using them whether it's in our refrigerator or our car tires or our cars, in sensors and many different devices. And we have trillions and trillions of these addresses. And the internet doesn't use domain names to deliver messages. It converts domain names to addresses, and all of the internet routing uses these addresses to move messages. So there's billions of addresses, and then down at the bottom I say 1K. There's thousands of standard settings. and ICANN is the community that works on those. The addresses, the names and addresses are connected by what we call lookups or DNS queries. And so when you type a domain name into your browser, you're actually calling a software system in the background operating somewhere on your PC or at the ISP, sometimes elsewhere, to return the right network address to deliver your message to the right place. It's just like the postal system in some way. That system is used more than 1 trillion times every single day, and it operates extremely reliably. So ICANN is a global policy coordinator of this. We run a little bit of operations, that's why I put the gray dot in the middle, but we work with all the operators. The DNS lookups at the bottom of that system are what are called root servers of the internet, and the root of the internet is the listing of all the top-level domains like .kw, .com, .net. Someone has to decide who's in charge of each one of those and make sure that those addresses are right, so that when we're looking for addresses in Kuwait under .kw, we get connected to the right servers. The root servers, there's 13 of them, and we're hoping to help introduce an LRoot server, and ICANN determines what is the root of the internet. We update the root each day if there are any changes, and we're also one of the publishers. And we hope that we'll have one of our root servers here in Kuwait in the near future, and we're in discussions about that. The standards of the internet are developed by engineers all over the world, certainly including some here in Kuwait. And they're in a group called the Internet Engineering Task Force. And they develop the networking standards for phones, for computers, for internationalized domain names, for introducing Arabic into the internet. And that network is very loose. It's a very decentralized network. And it's amazing because that voluntary decentralized network has developed the global internet as we understand it. They're supported by the Internet Society, or ISOC, and ISOC has chapters all over the world in many cities, I think 160 or more cities now. And ISOC operates .org. So if you've ever heard of .org for nonprofit organizations, the money that you pay for a .org registration flows through to ISOC, which supports the technical work of the ITF, which creates the standards that we as ICANN host, such as the protocol and parameter registries. Now, the internet, when it was born, was an American invention or development. It was funded by the Department of Defense of the United States government starting in the late 1960s to allow researchers to share hard disks. Because 40 years ago, a hard disk weighed many tons and was, this big across and this high for a 1 megabyte hard disk, for example, and it would cost, say, $5 million. So hard disks were really expensive, and these researchers wanted to share hard disks, so they created the internet because they had different networks that they needed to interconnect to be able to share the hard disks and share their research. So in '69, it was 100% American, but the United States continued to open up the internet to the world, and now it's become, virtually 100% international. ICANN as a body was created to take the coordination of the internet away from the American government, to evolve it out to become an international organization where every country in the world, whether it's Kuwait or Bahrain or the Emirates, all countries, China, Russia, India, all countries could help to coordinate the activities of the internet. And so how do we do that? We do that with many different stakeholder groups. So Qusay from the government of Kuwait very kindly organized a meeting we just had with the ISPs here in Kuwait, the internet service providers. The ISPs are one constituency with ICANN. There's a formal body of ISPs globally that help develop policies that relate to the internet and the domain name system. We also have governments. ICANN has more than 100 governments, I think it's 111, that formally, including Kuwait, that formally advise us on our policies. So if our ISPs and others develop some proposed policies, for example, then, not sure what I dropped there, then the governments will review those policies and give opinions to the ICANN board. We also have nonprofits and civil society have a formal organization for developing standards and bodies. Thank you very much. Standards within the organization. Civil society, we have security and stability advisors. These are technical experts around the world, from governments, from corporations, from technical universities that provide security advice and develop security guidelines. We have domain name registries and registrars, such as .kw, that are involved in coordinating policies for country code operations. We have numbering and addressing organizations for all the internet addresses, and we also have the engineering technical community like the IETF. And it's almost like each of those communities has their own governance bodies that develop policies, and then all those governance bodies come together at the ICANN board. So our board of 22 members includes representatives from every region of the world, all 5 geographies, and from each one of the different stakeholder groups. And this makes sure that everyone's voice can be heard in internet policies. And in fact, if any of you in the room today came to our ICANN public meeting in Prague, Czechoslovakia is the next one in June, they rotate around the world. If you came to Prague, any of you can come up to the public microphone in front of the world and share your views on where you think internet policy should go. ICANN is perhaps the most open and transparent governance body in the world today. Anyone and everyone can participate. You can even do it remotely. You can dial in from Kuwait and participate in the discussions, either in the mainstream with everyone participating, or in the specific constituency groups. And at our policy meetings, we have 3 a year. There are usually about 1,500 to 2,000 people present. But it's a very open system, and it's organized around these groups. It's actually much more complex than this picture looks like, but the beauty is everyone has a voice, and they get to work with specialists in their own field in developing those policies. So what are some of the outputs? What comes out of this global multi-stakeholder model? Well, one thing is a unified global internet that we talked about, because everybody in the world buys into this organization and model because it's open and they have an opportunity to participate. And it produces policies like new generic top-level domains. So when you think of .com or .net or .org, those are not country codes, so we call them generic domains. We have just received more than 2,000 applications for new top-level domains in the internet. It took 7 years just to develop that one specific program to today. Okay, 7 years of work. And it will take 3 years approximately for us to analyze those 2,000 applicants for something like a .sport or .brand or .company name. And we hope that there will be some from the Arab-speaking world in Arabic script as well. Internationalized domain names. This was very difficult work because when the internet was created, the only standard for language scripts was ASCII. So Internet Protocol 4 and Internet Protocol 6 are literally designed to only accommodate ASCII. So we had to figure out how to put other language scripts on top of that existing system and keep everything working 100% of the time. And that took about 15 years of technical and scientific efforts. But we introduced that program in 2009, and today there's 31 internationalized domain names in the root of the internet, and 10 of those are from the Arab-speaking world. We're very pleased about that, and we're hoping that more will come forward. We also have a lot of security policies and initiatives, and I'll speak to those more in a second, and Internet Protocol 6. Because we've run out of IPv4 addresses, the Internet's been re-architected to allow for trillions of addresses. We actually have 340 trillion addresses in IPv6. That is more than all of the stars in the universe. That is more than enough than to give every person in this room 1 trillion internet addresses, and also 1 trillion to everyone else in the world. So we have plenty of address space, probably for decades, if not longer. But with human ingenuity, we may figure out how to use those up. Let's look at some of the security activities as an example, because many countries, many companies, many ISPs are becoming increasingly concerned about security here in Kuwait, in this region, all over the world. So some of those initiatives are, the first is called the DNSSEC, or Domain Name System Security Extension. Think about it this way. The domain name system right now is wide open. Every domain name, all of the network information that's shared is wide open, like in ASCII files, and anybody can look at it, anybody can change it. We've added some cryptography to the system so that you can know that the domain name you're going to is authentic and is not, and you don't have what we call a man-in-the-middle attack. So today, if you go to google.com or a website, you type that in your browser, you think you're going to google.com, but how can you be sure? With DNSSEC installed on your browser with a plugin, and with Google support and your ISP support, you can be sure that it's google.com. So we're adding security to the domain name system. This has been done. We added it to the root of the internet last July. And we're hoping that more of the country code operators in the Gulf will be adding DNSSEC capabilities soon. And ISPs need to support it as well. SSAC, we have a Security and Stability Advisory Committee with experts from around the world that come up with new concepts and ideas for improved security for the overall internet. Because part of what you should understand is this internet that's so magnificently open was never designed for security. It wasn't. It was designed to be open. And that's why it's become so popular, because it's open, it's efficient, and it's flexible. Now we are working to re-architect the internet to make it fundamentally more secure. It's a different design objective, and DNSSEC is one of the key pillars of that. Two of the others, one pertains to the addressing blocks, which we call RPKI, and there's another one that relates to how the internet's, the ISPs exchange information through what we call border gateways, and so we're developing a secure version of border gateway protocol. I don't mean to bore you with technical details, but the key message is the internet was designed for openness. Now we're re-architecting it with the global technical community for security. And ICANN is a player in that discussion. And the global technical community and the IETF is the lead. And many IETF members in our SSAC group, and the RSAC, which is the Root Server Advisory Committee. That's the group of operators of root servers around the world. ICANN operates the L root of the internet, which is one of these routes, and again, we're in discussions with parties here in Kuwait because we'd like to partner with parties here if you would like to have L root instances in your country. We also developed the who-is policies. What is who-is? Well, if you see something from a domain name and you want to know who owns that domain name, then you go into the online record. That's called who-is. So who is behind a domain name? And it's a very complex, difficult set of legal, privacy, and other policy issues globally. It's one that our community is working on actively, including looking at better standard practices for allowing internationalized domain names or internationalized scripts like Arabic to be useful, to be used in who-is. And then there's also compliance activities. So that's a high-level summary of what ICANN does, and then I'm going to turn it around for questions in a moment, so I hope you think about what your questions might be. But I think that the real miracle here is that this is the greatest experience and collaboration in human history. It is amazing that this network continues to spread everywhere with virtually no centralized control. Because ICANN has a tiny centralized coordination role, but just for domain name policies and addressing policies. The truth is, no one is in charge of the internet, and everyone is in charge of the internet. Each of you is in charge when you buy a new Android phone or iPhone or a Nokia phone. You turn on a new cell phone or device. You've just extended the internet with what you've done. And so it's a collaborative effort. We invite all of you to get involved with the ICANN community however you wish, either physically joining in meetings. The next meeting is in Prague, June 25th. The following meeting after that is in Toronto in October. The next meeting after that will be in Asia. And maybe even someday we'll have one of our global meetings here in Kuwait with your good offices. But anyway, it's a great story because we're all working together. And so we thank you for supporting this global internet. And now I'd like to turn it around for any questions. Or maybe I should sit down and you're going to have questions for me there, right? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.